Good afternoon, folks. Brian Salter with Salter Racing Engines here, and today I'm going to show you a real quick tip as to how to make your piston improve airflow. And here's a pointer for you. If you're porting cylinder heads and you're using a long shank, a lot of times when I go down deep in the port with these shafts, sometimes they'll mark the edges of the runners because I'll accidentally bump it. So a long time ago I started putting straws on them. So just get a drinking straw and put over your shaft there, and it will protect your cylinder head or whatever it is that you're porting from marking it up. So yeah, really good idea here. But anyways, so what we're talking about today is, and I'm sorry, it's just me, so I'm just going to be showing this. What we're talking about is how the shape of a piston can affect the cylinder head flow. Because what can happen is your valve pocket can actually affect and shroud the valve. So especially when the intake valve is opening, it can go down deep against the pocket or close to the bottom and actually be completely shrouded by this pocket and cost you several CFM. Well, that's also costing you several horsepower. So one of the things I want to do is, number one, I want them all to be the same. And when you're done, I'm just going to show you a little scale here. When you're done, you make sure you put all your pistons on a scale and adjust the weight of those pistons to the lightest piston. Okay, so whichever piston comes out lightest, make them all that weight, so when you do your balancing, when you balance your assembly, everything comes out like it should. So we're going to focus on the intake pocket first, and then we will move over to the exhaust, and I'll talk about the importances of those because they are completely different. Remember, one is, especially on a naturally aspirated engine, one is filling the cylinder, and the other valve opens and you're exhausting the combustion process, the remainder of it. So two different processes, and we're going to approach these two pockets two different ways. Now this is a flat top piston that is not one of mine. It came in the shop in another engine. It was down on power, and this was actually a custom piston, and you can see where he's cut the exhaust pocket deeper for his valve, because most of the engines on these type of engines are around 750, 780 lift. They're very high RPM. But you can tell he spent some time putting the pocket in it, but he didn't take any time making the thing work better. So anyway, that's what we're going to be discussing. So the first thing is, I will actually mark out exactly how much I want to remove from this intake pocket, and I do that with a caliper. Now, many years ago, very wise machinist who was teaching me said, hey, when you get a set of quality calipers, treat them with respect. Treat them like an egg, right? So I do take care of my calipers, and I have several sets. And I have sets that I don't mind kind of like abusing, and I have sets that I don't let nothing happen to. So I'm saying that because you don't want to use your calipers, your good pair, as a scribe. But that's exactly what I'm about to do. I'm actually going to use these as a scribe to mark a line so that that line is the same all around this pocket, and it gives me a very good indication of where I want to be. Now in this particular one, I've chosen 150 thousandths, and the reason you don't want to use them as a scribe is because it wears your tips down. Like I said, it's all about taking care of your tools. So you want to get a pair that you don't mind doing that, and keep a pair that you're not worried about. You know, you keep a pair that's you want to trust the measurements of it. Keep that one just for measuring, and have another set for, you know, knock around pair that you can abuse and not have to worry about it. So anyways, I've marked this pocket, and I'm not going to cut this entire pocket that deep. Okay, I'm going to probably only go about half of that distance. And you'll see here in a moment. So I've got a grinding burr here on my air tool. And I apologize if it's loud. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I have no idea how this is going to sound. But here we go. And we'll discuss it as we get along with it. Now, one thing I will tell you is always have some lubrication, especially when you're grinding, well, when you're grinding anything, porting, I should say, whether it's aluminum or cast iron, always have a light cutting oil. And with aluminum, you want to keep your rotating speed down. I found that it does way better if you keep your rotating speed down. It doesn't tend to wad up. And this is one for steel, and I am using it for, even though that's aluminum, this is a steel type cutter. The ones for aluminum have less flutes and they're way more aggressive blades. I'm not after that. I'm after fine tuning right now, so that's why I've got this carbide burr in my grinder. All right, so here we go. Let's begin. Okay, so as you can see, I've laid this back to this edge. Let me see if I can zoom in here for you. And that is a huge difference, a very, very large difference. All right, and you may say, well, why are you doing that? Well, here's the deal. Here's the reason why. When your valve opens on the intake side, what you're doing is you're removing that shroud right there, okay? That's not a really good, I'm going to try and get a little better shot of that. Hate being by myself when you do this kind of thing. So you can imagine, let's see, you can imagine if this was not laid back, just how shrouded it would be. And what I've done is I've opened it. You know what, just bear with me, guys. I'm going to move this camera for a moment here. Let me back away. And okay, so I've changed the view here, and this is what I want you to notice. We have now, let me back away just a little bit here. I'm fighting this view here. Okay, hopefully you can see how much I've laid that back. I'm trying to get this thing to focus. I've laid that back a ton. So as that valve opens up and you've got intake flow coming in, imagine that wall would be right where I cut all that off. That wall would be about there, and your valve would be all the way up against that piston valve relief right there, very close to it. And I've laid all that back. You say, well, what does that do? Well, it gave me more CFM now, see, because it's unshrouded. It is no different than doing the cylinder head work. No different whatsoever. This piston will change, it will, you know, enhance or hurt your airflow based on that pocket design. All right, so you see how what I've done. I'm going to finish this pocket up, and I'll show you that here in a second. All right, we're back here. I'm going to change tools for you. And now what I'm going to is a 6-inch mandrel with a cartridge roll. All right. Now this is an 80 grit cartridge roll. You would probably want to definitely finish it out with a very fine, much higher number than this to finish your surface, to get the surface finish you want. I use standard abrasives. They are some of the absolute very best. I've tried them all. Oh, also this length right here, guys, this is very important, okay? As you can see, let me open this up here. This length is 1.5 inches, all right? Now they make them longer than this, but let me tell you something. What's gonna happen is when you start spinning this thing up, the longer they are, you don't have the stability. Let me show you how this works, just in case you don't know. Okay, so notice how this is cut. Okay, these things bite into your cartridge roll and keep it from spinning on the shaft. Then you have this little mandrel piece. And when you get some that's longer, they stick out about that far. And then when you rev them up really fast, they start doing this number. They start flopping like that. And then all of a sudden your shank is bent. And you are madder than fire because you ain't even got started yet. All you did was rev it up one time and the thing is garbage. So be careful with that. I stick to no longer than 1.5 inches. Also, these come in much smaller diameter ones. This is about the biggest I use. And they have some that's really small diameter, and I like those too. But I don't go any bigger than these because I like to have control of what's happening. Okay, now I'm just going to take a little paper towel and wipe some of this out. And I'm just going to commence to fine tuning this pocket. So here we go. Okay, hopefully you can see what I've done. Now some of you may be going, well hey, why don't you just put that in a milling machine in what we call a piston vise and do it that way? Well, I can. Obviously I can do that, right? But that's not going to help the guys who don't have that equipment. And fellas, I've done it like this for years and years and years, by hand, and you see how beautiful that's turned out. That is a gorgeous radius. I'm actually quite happy with it. And I would just finish this out, roll these edges a little bit more. You said, why would you do that? Because I don't want any sharp edges in my bore, okay? None. None in the cylinder, I meant to say. Because the combustion process, heat always goes to the sharpest point. It always goes to the very tip edge of the sharpest edge, and if you've got edges in here, that's where it's going to be the hottest. Now, another thing, you'll notice that how he's cut this exhaust pocket here, that it's stepped, which is fine, but he's left this ridge right here, and this is a very good place prone for cracking, especially when they get a lot of time on them. You know, one time where the timing's way too high, or you get for some other reason some really bad fuel, and you get a little spark knocker detonation, right in there is where these things can crack. And it's because of the step that they've left. So I normally will smooth that down and actually going to smooth this down too. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and show you that. Again, I apologize for the noise. Oh, one last thing. You see this little area right here? You want to really blend that, because these are areas that can bust out. If you have any kind of ignition issues, sometimes they can bust out there. Now, I've never had that happen to me on a Chevrolet, never. But I have seen it on some 4-cylinder items where the valve pockets are cut in, and this valve pocket actually extends past here, and they'll leave this little lip edge where it cut through the wall, which is fine, but they'll leave a little sharp point right there, and all of a sudden it starts detonating and spark knocking from that hot zone where this will come to a razor's edge, and man, it does havoc. So if you've got a situation like, make sure you really roll that, okay, really smooth that out. All right, here we go. Let's work on the exhaust a little bit. And I'm being very gentle, guys. Let the grinder do the work. And just, you'll notice I got very good speed control. This is a throttle deal. I'm gonna show you how. Right, and I'm putting my finger underneath it so I can have good throttle control, okay? And that's just from years of doing it. Just very light pressure. All right, that feels really good. All right, roll that back a hair bit. The camera is right in my way, but I'm trying to work around it. Okay, now I'm going to step to another tool. And this is called a cross buff. And as you can see, I have, these are awesome, man. I use these for so many things. This is a cross buff, and it has obviously the same kind of throttle control. This one I have variable air pressure on. This is one of the only ones I have that on, because a lot of times I will use this particular one with a very long shank on it to port intakes and deep down in cylinder heads. So I like to have some air pressure control, which I highly recommend that for everything, so you can't go wrong with that. All right, now cross buff, they come in different grits of, it's almost like basically it's basically a Scotch-Brite. And let me see if I have a new one so that you can see what they look like. I do, but maybe not right here close to me. No, I don't. Anyways, they come in different grades, very coarse, very slick. So let's just hit it with the cross buff, and we'll show you kind of how this works. Oh, by the way, same thing on this shaft here. If this is out of balance and you rev it really high, you will bend this shaft in about 0.002 seconds. You will completely ruin your day, and I've bent this one multiple times, and I've straightened it, but yeah, it is time for me to get a new one. Just be careful with that, free revving it like that. You'll notice I'm not taking off any metal. It is literally a polisher. That looks awesome, guys. That looks truly awesome. At the end, I'll take the camera off the stand and actually get a little closer for you. So I told you this one area right here is important to me. I want to make sure I kind of knock that down a little bit. So I'm going to do that now. And for that, I'm going back to my sandpaper cartridge roll. And see if I can do this without hitting the camera, because it is right where I need to be. Yep. Hang on, let me move this thing. Okay. Here we go. Much better, much better. That sharp edge is now gone. It's blended. I'm gonna buff it here just a second. And then also, I'm gonna hit this edge right here as well. Okay, so you can now see that the sharp edges here are just about completely gone. They are slick as glass. And that for sure helps with any kind of detonation or pre-ignition. Now, I would go ahead and cross buff the whole rest of this piston and make it nice and slick, and also pay special close attention to these edges right here. Those I'm going to take with Scotch-Brite and just barely make sure there's no sharp edges, no nicks where somebody's bumped it. Just remember, all this is in the combustion chamber, or part of the chamber, when it comes up on the power stroke, or I should say the compression stroke, right before that spark happens, or when that spark happens. This is now part of that combustion chamber momentarily. So this has a big effect on power output. It has a big effect on cylinder head flow. If you're shrouding the valve when it begins to open, you're hurting your flow. So if this allows me to pick up, I don't know, 5 CFM, well, 5 CFM per hole is, you know, if it's an 8-cylinder, that's quite a bit of CFM, and it might make 10 horsepower, guys. Well, 10 horsepower just from cutting valve reliefs will win you a competition. And it could be enough, you know, to win the race if you're neck and neck and you got the same engine. Let's say you got 10 more horsepower than him and everything else is the same. Well, technically you should win that race. Of course, we all know there's way more variables than that, but let's just say it was the same driver, same setup, same tires, same car, everything's the same, except you got 10 more horsepower. You should hopefully win that race. And that's why I do it. It takes time. You have to be very careful. And yes, when my pistons come that I order, I have them made this way. But if the pistons are okay, they're reusable, the guy's on a budget, I can do this work and then send these things out and have them coated, get the rings I want in there, and have a really good engine that, I mean, quite frankly, they would turn out as good as something I had ordered if the guy would allow me to spend some labor and some time on them. So I'm showing you these things. You can get these tools, get you some old pistons and practice. If you can get your hands on a set of pistons that's been done by a pro or somebody like, you know, they probably ain't going to show them to you, but anyways, probably in the catalog maybe. Now some of the catalogs, some of the piston manufacturers, they'll put a little one right here, little layback. No, it needs to be much bigger than that. And if you're running a 2165, 2180, or 2200, or big block stuff, you know, where you got some decent size intake valves, that little bitty lip that they put on it ain't going to do anything. Remember, these manufacturers make parts with room to spare so that you, the engine builder, can personalize them to make them your own. Because I'm gonna do things different than everybody else, and everybody else is gonna do things different than me. So just keep that in mind. Now, there's a lot more going on here than just this, but I thought I'd spend a little time and show you this much, and hopefully you learned something from this. Going to be talking about, I'm actually going to show you, I'm working on it now when I get a minute here. I'm going to show you actual timing events and where the piston is with a camera so that you can see just how fast that valve gets into that pocket on the opening side of things. I'm going to show you that with a camera, and also same for when this chases the exhaust shut. So you're going to see just how big a deal this really is. I know it's going to be eye-opening. It might be eye-opening for some engine builders, who knows, but it's eye-opening to me. I learned so much doing stuff like that. So anyway, y'all, this is Brian Salter with Salter Racing Engines. And, you know, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And please like and share, subscribe. You know, if I don't see something, I'm not going to probably do this, but, you know, I appreciate the comments. And anyways, I'm at a loss for words, which is very rare for me, even if it's, anyways. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.